Don't make these 5 mistakes when building wealth. This is a warning about chasing net worth. Don't risk your wealth. And in order to do that, you got to avoid these mistakes. In today's world, people are overemphasizing net worth. Net worth doesn't translate to quality of life quite often. And often it's something that people chase at their own expense, trying to build up this number that's helpful, but only in relationship to a few other things. We'll cover that. A lot of people just misidentify wealth. They haven't thought of what wealth is, and so it's always elusive. They're always chasing it, but it's always kind of on the horizon, not quite ever there. And unfortunately, we're indoctrinated. We're trained, taught, and educated to be one-dimensional, leaving it to too much risk and chance and not enough certainty. And that's because most people kind of collapse the term investing with speculation, with gambling. And ultimately, people just don't understand or develop their investor DNA. You can become a much better investor. So let's create some momentum with your money. If you focus on cash flow first, if it becomes about economic independence, have enough recurring revenue from your assets to cover your expenses instead of net worth, you're going to accelerate that path to freedom. And you just have to ask yourself, how can you most quickly create more cash flow? For some, it might be paying off a loan. Others, it might be saving tax. It comes down to these 5 levers. Number 1, you plug financial leaks. Number 2, you engineer your financial independence. What's the number you need every single month? And if you could cover that expense from assets at creating cash flow, you have that independence. Number 3 is about accelerating investment income. Too many people have lazy assets. They're trapped. They're not kicking off cash flow. They're not giving dividends. They're not supporting their path to freedom. 4, unfortunately, because we're so busy budgeting, we don't scale our revenue. We don't invest enough in ourselves. We don't build enough of our team. We're at odds with every dollar. How much should go to savings and in towards a retirement plan versus to growing the business? And I don't want all your wealth trapped in your business. I want to turn business wealth into personal wealth, and I'll talk about how to do that. And then finally, that 5th one is to make it count. Enjoy your life. Create the life you don't want to retire from. It's the way you view money. Most people eliminate wealth through the language they use. They speak poverty into existence. I can't afford that. I don't have the time. I wish I knew. I don't know. That's for other people. I'm not that lucky. I don't know how to create that level of value. I just missed the opportunity. If I would have only invested in that. That kind of language leads to victimhood that's not about creating an exciting, compelling future. It's about living in regret of what we didn't do in the previous days. You have a choice moving forward. So those 5 levers are the key. See, the ream is maybe wealth just gets too much credit and too much blame. Maybe it's really us and how we see it. How do we see wealth? Like when you see an old guy, maybe an ugly guy with some young, beautiful woman, what's your first thought? Must be loaded, right? Not great personality, not wonderfully supporting, loving partner or husband. Of course not. It's always, he has to be rich. It's all perspective, right? See, there's a fine line between foolish or smart, reckless or fun, lucky or hardworking. It's kind of like how people talk about people when they die. When you have money, but don't just hand it out to everyone who needs it, everyone talks trash. That guy's a miser, total tightwad. So tight he could shit a diamond. But you go to the funeral, everyone's making the person out to be a saint. He was such a diligent saver, an amazing steward with money. A man rich in love and wealthy in happiness and family. Like, I don't even know who they're talking about sometimes. But then on the drive home, it's right back to, there wasn't even enough food there because that old cheapskate was so tight. He probably has his money in the grave with him. So, look, wealth is more about the journey and mindset than it's like a place of arrival. And the first issue that people have is they just misidentify wealth. There's a difference and a distinction between being rich and being wealthy. Rich means you have a lot of money. Great. Like money can definitely rent happiness. It can afford a lot of conveniences in life. But if it's devoid of purpose, if you're not sure how to sustain it, it can actually be a bit of a curse. So wealthy comes in 5 tracks. The first track is money. Money's part of it. Like people that say money's not important probably don't have a lot of it. It's like an excuse, but I think of money like air. When there's plenty of it and it's abundant, it's not something you have to really talk about that much, right? It's just kind of there. The second thing is purpose. When we have purpose, when we enjoy what we do, when we create value in the world consistent with the key piece of who we are, when we narrow down, we say, this is what my life's about. I'm going to dedicate my life to this. That purpose matters towards being wealthy. It's these dimensions. The third one is our mindset. If people are always in fear, doubt, and worry, if people believe that profit is evidence of deception or coercion and that billionaires must mean that they're bad people somehow or they've taken more than their fair share, that mindset corrupts and it actually destroys wealth. But if the mindset is there's plenty of money, it's abundant, hell, they're printing it all the time, and money's always circulating. It's just, how do I add value so that circulates through me as well? See, that mindset's everything. It's the language that we form. It's the wealth and vision that we build. It's profit is evidence of value creation. So how can I be more value? The fourth dimension of wealth, or the fourth track is what I would call it, is the physical aspect. It's our health. Health is wealth. We hear that all the time. So if you're not very healthy, there's kind of this like proverb that says, if you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. If you don't have it, you have but one, which is to get that health back. And then the fifth one. The fifth part of this is social. Relaxation, rejuvenation, and recreation. It's making sure that we manage our energy, that we live this life that we don't want to retire from. So it's, money, it's spirituality and purpose, it's mindset and viewpoints and perspective, it's social well-being and the enjoyment that we have, and it's our physicality, it's the health that we have. So I would say that wealth is being present. There's this movie called, it had Justin Timberlake in it, like something about time, about, I don't know what it's called, but it's like you have this timer. When you reach a certain age, you don't age past 24, and then you have to earn the time to stay alive. And so there's really wealthy people in this, certain part of Connecticut, and they live these great lives, but these other people that are poor, they're just always working just to make it, just to add some time to their arm, right? And if they don't have that, they die. And so if it's always about getting somewhere just to survive, that survival mentality can hold us back. It's that we're never present because we're thinking about what we have to do, what's next, and getting more. And that more becomes this kind of it's just like this insatiable appetite that we might have. And that's being rich maybe, but it's not being wealthy. Being wealthy is a byproduct of a life well lived. So the second issue here is people overemphasize net worth at the neglecting cash flow. Net worth is our balance sheet. It's our assets minus our liabilities. It's not like we walk around with a sign behind us saying what our net worth is, but so many people put their self-worth into their net worth. Like that's, okay, great, I've got a good net worth. I'm worth something, but we're all worth something. It's just, have we cultivated it? Have we discovered it? Have we served others with it? Have we solved problems? Have we added value? So what is net worth really? Usually it's money left behind. That fluctuates with economies. It's a snapshot, not a definition of who you actually are. Other piece that confuses people around being wealthy and having wealth is that we get too one-dimensional, focused on money, but we neglect the purpose, the mindset, the health, the social well-being, the friendships and relationships that we can develop. And so that becomes problematic, because are we really going to be reduced to a number in a bank account, dots on a piece of paper? If we're chasing that to think, maybe when you're young, you're like, when I'm a millionaire, but then you're a millionaire, and you're like, I don't feel rich enough. I need to be a multimillionaire. Then you're a multimillionaire. You're like, I want to be worth $100 million. And there's always someone with more. And if it's always chasing that, we miss moments. We rush through and rush past those moments to get somewhere that we can never achieve, because more is not a place that we arrive. It's always kind of outside of ourselves. Now, the next piece around wealth that really decimates it for people is speculation. Now, we call it investing, but most people are speculators. If I said, how does that investment work? How do you benefit from it? How do you protect it and sustain it? Why would someone pay you for that? It's kind of like understanding that these at least three dimensions. Like if I give someone money, they use the money, but for what? If it's an option trade, options are like gambling. A call says, I think it's going to go up, so I'm going to put some money, and if it goes up, I get more. Or puts down. If it goes down, I get the money and someone else loses. It's a win-lose zero-sum game. Life isn't a zero-sum game. Life and wealth is something where more people get wealthy, the more value that's created. Like if we go back hundreds of years ago, only the wealthy people could afford to have music because they had to hire the band, the quartet to come and play. There wasn't, There wasn't just a phone that had everything on it through the internet that you could just listen to at any time. If you want to have great food, it's whatever could be cooked. Otherwise, you might be eating like a peasant and whatever the scraps are. And in today's world, people are wealthier than ever. You look at the cars that are being driven, you can fly anywhere in the world in like 24 hours. You have a variety of food. It's like we just can continue to build on ideas. If you look at I went, what was it, the Palace of Versailles. Palace of Versailles, we went, I was hungover. I drank too much the night before. And it was like, I wasn't feeling really good. And I'm looking around and, you go from room to room. It's this really big property. But, when I was built, like King Louis, he didn't have plumbing. They just had to throw buckets of crap out. It probably stunk to high heaven. There was no air conditioning. There was no refrigeration. So there was no ice. There was we can have people in the middle class live a higher quality of life than some of the wealthiest people from hundreds of years ago. Because exchange is what creates wealth. And so when we understand that, we look to be of more value. And the more value we create, the more money will chase or follow that value. Because money doesn't really care about effort. It cares about value. And some people, because they don't understand the game of value, they get in the game of speculation. Oh, if I just bought this Bitcoin at the right time, if I just bought this other meme coin at the right time and then made it, they think it's a game of luck. Now, there is some luck involved for sure. Where you're born, the family that you have, the experiences, but you have God-given talents and abilities. Have you cultivated? Have you brought those to the world? We're in a world today that's magical in so many ways. It's an amazing time. Someone with massive value, because they have talent, can be discovered because of how easy it is to put something out on the internet that before you had to sign some contract to be an artist to get paid a scrap of what you were actually producing, where now there's so many ways. Like I'm an author. Some authors, to get published, you already have to have a huge audience and be famous and be well known, and you get an advance. But otherwise, might be really hard to get. But now there's co-publishing, self-publishing. Like people can write a book and put it out pretty quickly and have that distribution that wasn't available decades ago. So instead of thinking oh, what could I chase as a return with this money so I could become wealthy because it's going to pay off, I'm going to buy the right stock, or stop thinking in speculation, stop chasing returns, and start increasing your ability to create value. If you understand your value and you bring that to people, all you have to do is understand this equation called the value equation. The value equation looks like this. It's our mental capital, ideas, knowledge, wisdom, insight, strategies, tools, processes, multiplied by our relationship capital, networks, organizations, mentors, friends, family, customers, patients, whatever that is. And the bridge between mental and relationship capital is business. So if we're good at marketing and communication, if we learn the skills of business, we can take these ideas and improve people's lives. And the byproduct of that is money. So money follows our mental capital and the effectiveness of using that mental capital to serve others and solve problems and add value. So if you think you have a money problem, it's really a mental or relationship capital problem. Maybe around overly negative people that tell you you can't do things and it's not possible, versus being around people that positively challenge you. Or maybe you have brilliant ideas, but if you keep it to yourself and never bring that to the world, that's potential. We turn potential into production by using that bridge between mental and relationship capital. So stop speculating. Instead, figure out your investor DNA. This is the next piece. Investor DNA, your values. What do you value? What's important to you? What drives you? Then, those drivers are the passion that is added to the value. And then figure out your competencies, and where you don't have it, collaborate and delegate. So think about it. Who are you when you're at your best? This is less luck and it's more skill. So this is really quick and really to the point. But net worth, if we focus too much on that, we have to really realize that money is just a man-made efficient tool to exchange with one another. It's a snapshot in time. It doesn't reflect our potential or determine our destiny. Our bank account is money that we can tap into, but if we don't have ideas and we don't know what to do with that, that's where risk comes in. And if it's only about net worth, well, net worth is relatively worthless if it can't be converted to cash flow, if it can't be converted into value. If we're so consumed in, I got to hold on to what I've got, I don't want to lose that, we're not thinking about how we serve, we're just thinking how we save. So wealth is a game of production more than reduction. No one shrinks away to wealth. So net worth, helpful, but not the ultimate destiny. If we misidentify wealth as numbers in a bank account, but it doesn't translate to quality of life, that's to our own detriment. If it's so one-dimensional that we're not thinking about our mindset, if we're not considering our health, if we're not considering the riches and relationships and the connections that we have, if we're not taking into consideration quality of life, what's it all for? You can read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, and you too could become a broke, miserable millionaire, meaning you have $1 million, but you don't see that in your life, and it's something that your heirs probably don't know about, so when they get the money, they're probably going to blow it because they don't know how to be stewards over it. Discover your investor DNA. Like we have this amazing, in this book, Killing Sacred Cows 2.0. It's the updated version of my New York Times bestseller. In this, I contribute the Investor DNA guide. So if you go KSC on Instagram, go to Garrett B. Gunderson and then just go ahead and DM me, KSC. I'll hook you up with a PDF of the book, and then you can download the course. As you go through the course, you can start to unveil your investor DNA so you'll know what to say no to because it's not a good investment for you. See, because the investment, there's some people that are amazing at real estate, some people aren't. Some people are great at creating intellectual property, others aren't. Some people are amazing at business, others aren't. Find your sweet spot. Find your sole purpose, your values, your abilities, your passions for the highest context of living. Who are you when you're at your best? If we just go through chasing returns, if we're in FOMO because someone else made money and then we get in late because that greed kicks in and then all of a sudden it loses, we don't know why it would lose if it's something not aligned with our investor DNA. If we overemphasize net worth at the expense of our quality of life, we end up with guilt and shame when we're not earning, and that costs us that presence. That can cost us relationships. It can rob us of moments. We chase the future at the expense of the present. So it comes down to this. What would money Jesus do? Look, I wouldn't mind having Jesus' life, not so much his death, but his life, right? And if I could ask Jesus just a few questions, these would be it. Do we really need this many Fast and Furious movies? Huh? What does the H stand for? Oh, Hussein? That makes sense. You're Middle Eastern. Kidding, of course. There's a little comedy in this. But I think you'd say create a life you don't want to retire from. Enjoy life along the way. Speak wealth into existence. What do I mean by that? I mean, create a bold vision. And even a vision, something beyond your current reach. It allows for other people to support you as well. You don't have to have it all figured out to speak it into existence. The conversation of poverty is one of blame. It's one of complaining. It's the one that's consumed with politics without action. It's one consumed with numbing out on social media versus defining your own life. It's getting caught up in other characters rather than real people. So choose abundance. Be a value creator. Establish that compelling vision, one you could dedicate your life to. Discover your purpose. I think there's divine will and there's free will. And free will sometimes is a detour because we ignore our intuition. The key is to live your best life.